Toby here from Yield Labs. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am absolutely honored and very proud and privileged to have Jan Strandberg from the Acquire.Fi. Now, those of you who aren't familiar with Jan and his background, Jan is the co-founder and CEO of Acquire.Fi. It is a new M&A platform coming to a crypto space near you very soon. We're super excited about it. So Jan, if you can give me a little bit of a background about yourself, and if we can start to chat about Acquire.Fi, what it is, what it means, and how it's going to be different to anything that we've really seen before.
Hey, for sure. Thanks, Toby, for having me, and thanks Yield Lab for supporting us. It's been fantastic what you guys have been giving us advices, and also your community members have been very excited about us. So it's kind of
our pleasure, man. My pleasure. This plays right into our yielding sort of strategies. So
no, for sure. People who don't know me, my name is Jan. I've been in crypto from 2011. One of my earlier projects was Paxful. I was there for 4.5 years, scaled it up to more than 4.5 million users, $2 billion in volume. Then after 4.5 years, I quit, co-founded Yield Apps. And basically, Yield App is one of the prominent players in the yielding space. I was there for 2 years. Scaled up to more than $500 million assets under management. Then 8 months ago, I quit and started building something called Acquire.Fi. And Acquire.Fi is basically an ecosystem where Web3 founders can exit their startup. Normal retail people can invest in real-world assets, and VCs and institutions can invest in these Web3 companies. And basically what we're trying to solve is two things. First of all, there's no open order book for M&A in crypto. So that's a very big problem for Web3 founders trying to exit because they have nowhere to go. And second of all, we're trying to build up this crowdfunding platform for real world assets. And at the moment, there's a lot of different platforms that are doing it, but we're trying to combine those all into one place and basically give high yielding opportunities with real world assets or investment opportunities where you can actually diversify your cryptos without doing on and off ramps. I hope that makes something what we're doing more clear.
Yeah. So let's touch on the really the roots of this a little bit, because I think it's fascinating. It's perhaps bringing to retail, ultimately retail users in the crypto space, something that they perhaps will have been unaware of, or perhaps wouldn't have had access to in the past. And so ultimately, what Acquire is going to enable people to do is, say I set up a Web3 business. It was a platform that did XYZ, and I've given it all that I can. I'm not a rug puller. I want to see this product that I've designed and created grow and flourish. But I just don't think that it can do that under my own hands anymore. I think that it needs to go out to somebody else, or it needs to be funded more. And basically, Acquire is a platform that will allow me to do this. So you guys are kind of acting as, I don't want to say broker. Can I say broker? It's kind of like you guys are acting as the party that allows me to sell this on or move this company on to other people or a group of people or a conglomerate, and allow people to basically yield and earn returns from doing this.
Yeah, so we're basically a marketplace. And if you look at our ecosystem, we have two things that we're doing. First of all, we have the M&A side. So we're buying and selling crypto companies. We have people coming to us with their different projects, and we are basically helping them to sell out their businesses and connecting them with tier 1 funds. And then on the other side, on the buy side, we have tier one funds, normal people, business owners, or even Web2 companies that want to come into the space and buy out some of these Web3 companies. That's just one revenue aspect. Then we have the second one, which is this crowdfunding aspect. And that means that you can actually start investing in real world assets. These real world assets can be anything from watches, luxury cars, apartments, houses, whatever you can imagine that is real and that is tangible, we probably will have it. So I'm pretty excited about that because, yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm interrupting you too. But I think the second part that you're talking about there is what's going to get a lot of people excited and interested, like from a retail perspective. And this is something that we've talked a lot about, like with our community, is having real world assets. Like, it's all well and good having these huge numbers of paper games, but until you actually realize them and, you know, have something tangible to show for it, then it's exactly just that, right? They're just paper games. So I guess the easiest way to kind of give an example of this is kind of like fractional ownership, right? So yeah, you guys can buy, like, I don't know, like an apartment complex, or you can buy like a resort, or you know, something really interesting and cool like that, or like a really rare like Rolex, or a really rare Patek Philippe watch, or something like that, and people can have basically fractional ownership of this. And then the way that you would get return on this is through appreciation of that asset, or through the revenue that the asset itself can earn. Is that right?
That's correct. So what we're actually doing in the crowdfunding perspective is we're doing SPV, special purpose vehicle, and we are fractionalizing that SPV into NFTs. And once you own an NFT, that's actually real equity. So it's a security as long as it's staying inside of our ecosystem, which means Acquire.Fi. But if you want to withdraw that NFT becomes metadata. And basically you can start trading it on the OpenSea or the secondary market, which becomes liquid. And if you have liquid assets, and for example, let's say I own a Rolex, like if I personally own a Rolex, it's a huge risk for me, right? Because I own it alone. It's like a very big investment. But if I do it with the crowdfunding aspect, it's actually a small risk for me owning just a small part of this Rolex. And that becomes very interesting eventually, because once we get more and more watches, collectibles, or whatever you can imagine on chain, and we can fractionalize them and build up that second tier liquidity, that becomes very, very lucrative for small people like me and you, because we can start diversifying our portfolios much better. Like it's kind of very sad in the world that the rich people have more let's say lucrative places to put their money on, because they have the assets, they have more money than us. That means that they can get into collectibles that we cannot, because they are too expensive. They can get to more luxury cars, luxury watches, and of course, because they're luxurious, or they're not made that many, it means that they're scarce. And if you have scarce products, they usually just go up in value. So this is one thing that, like with this crowdfunding aspect and with this like fractionalization, I personally want to tackle, because it's a huge problem. Like if you can if you can create wealth to a lot of people, I think that's fantastic. And one of the reasons I back in the day started Yield App was because I saw the DeFi opportunity there. I had other founders that saw the same thing and basically wanted to build wealth for a lot of different people in a safe way. So yeah, I think what we're building is very exciting, and I hope a lot of people that see this podcast, and especially you guys, that, I mean, Yield Labs has been building a big community already, but I think the next steps for Yield Labs will be like diversification, going into other things than just crypto yielding aspects. But let's see. I'm very open. What
we
you guys are
definitely
doing.
have we definitely have a few fans in the community of like luxury watches and stuff like that. And I think perhaps it's out of reach for some people, like you say. But the thing that interests me about this sort of fractional ownership as well is the power in numbers that you get also. So, you know, like you start being able to compete with perhaps single entities that have X amount of capital. If you have a community of say 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 people that, you know, they only have to put 100, 200, $500 in each, and then you have like a really, really large sum of capital that can be competitive in like these auctions. And it's or in auctions to bid on resources or to bid on assets or like fractionalized ownership of. One of the things that came to mind for me when I first heard about what you guys were doing and like this sort of tokenized fractional ownership aspect of it was like fine art and stuff like that, because that really is something that is for the like, you know, that the higher reaching sort of wealth of society. And it's something that perhaps like you or myself or whatever perhaps wouldn't have interest in because it's such a large amount of capital to get involved with. But the power in numbers sort of approach, and you know, you could buy like a Banksy piece of artwork, or you could buy you know, a Picasso or something like this is huge. And I think that the possibilities of what you can start to achieve when you bring groups of like-minded investors together is really huge. You can make a huge impact with a really, really cool group of like-minded people.
No, I agree. I think the community itself, it's been growing steadily, and the more people come to us, like I had, was it 2 days ago, a guy hit me up with this collectibles of what's the game called? I think it was Pokemon, like very selective Pokemon cards. Yeah, and this was totally random. And the guy is like, "Hey, I have this like very lucrative Pokemon business that I know, and would you guys want to maybe invest in these collectibles and so forth?" Like, these are the people and community members we want, because I think eventually the more we grow, the more capacity and variety we can have on what we invest in, and that's the beauty of it. But of course, we are working with asset managers already.
It's really funny that you talk about that, because there's so many, and I often think about things like this is like you don't really know about these communities and areas of like where there's enormous value are just like unbeknown to me, like retro video games consoles, like Pokemon cards, like all of this stuff. Like there's huge amounts of rarity, and there's a lot of sort of liquidity as well, I guess, because these pieces are in high demand. And I guess when you create demand, that's when you guys have opportunity to deliver on that.
No, I agree. But yeah, let's see what else we get in the coming months. But I'm very excited. We've been building for at least 4 months, like constantly on the MVP. And in the end of the month, we're going to be launching. So people out there, check it out, Acquire.Fi. It's going to be there. But yeah,
absolutely. I will make sure that all of the links and everything are down in the video description, and people can check all of this stuff out. So I guess that leads us nicely on to sort of like the next point. You had a guy approach you. You were saying about like these playing cards. What does the deal flow look like? And I know from knowing you that you are like very well connected in this space. I know that you've got like colleagues in Harrison, like making connections and traveling around meeting people. What does this deal flow look like to you? Like, how do you find deals? Like, is there a particular field that you're focused on, or is there a field you want to focus on, either for Acquire, or is there something that you personally would like to sort of like have a little side focus on?
No, it's well, this all started really funny because during my time at Yield App, I started getting a lot of founders coming to me and being like, hey, I want to exit my startup. I want to exit my Web3 company. And these, like usually when you talk about an exit, especially in crypto, you think that these are like closed cases and so forth. But these were actually very successful like companies coming to me and be like, hey, can you help me out? And then on the other side, I had a lot of funds coming to me and looking for different deals. And from there on, we've been like going back and forth, building this deal flow. 4 months ago, when we started like putting up the website and the applications form and so forth, we maybe had like 5 or 6 deals up. Now we have over 75 deals on the merger and acquisition side. We're getting around 2 to 3 different deals a week now. I think it's definitely a buyer's market. So we have a lot of venture studios coming to us and be like, hey, we want to buy 5 different companies, merge them up together and build them up bigger. And I think this is going to come eventually to a lot of tier 1 funds also. And DAOs, like 2 of our biggest backers at the moment are actually DAOs, and they're looking to buy different media placement companies and so forth. So that's very exciting. And then on the real world asset side, like we have Ken Mack. I don't know if you know or people know about Ken Mack. Ken Mack is one of the, let's say, one of the top 10 M&A guys in the traditional finance world, doing merger and acquisition with debt financing and with other things. And he's been also collecting watches for the past 10 years. He's been collecting different metals.
That must be quite a collection now.
Yeah, we saw him. But we do have deal flow already on the real world asset side. Like we're also working with different real world asset managers that are bringing us deals. But of course, we are trying to listen to the community and understand like, hey, what do you guys want? What should we list there? Because at the moment, like once we go live, we have to understand more about the community and what they want. We have 3 different things that we're trying to do on the launch, like 3 different investment pools. One is actually a school in UK, which is pretty amazing. They're selling 10% of their equity. Then we have a watch, and then we have some gold coins, which are rare. But the third, like the gold coins are still a question mark, but at least we have 2 pools now going live. But as you know me, I get deals constantly. I don't know, being in this space for such a long time, I think it's a good and bad thing, you know?
Yeah, but from the deals side, like it's great that you're well connected. You can see sort of like on your guys' pitch deck. Is that they're public right at the moment? People can go and have a look at your
your
for
pitch
sure.
It will be.
They can see
down the link. It will be down the link for sure.
So I'll make sure that they're included down below. But you can see that there is a great team over Acquire.Fi, well connected. As Jan was saying, like people like Ken Mack, so bringing traditional world experience into the crypto space. I think these offer sort of fantastic opportunities for you guys to go outwards. Like you don't want to be, and one of the real purposes of this is you don't want to just be in this crypto echo chamber. You want to expand outwards, and you want to have real world assets. You want to be buying like tangible things that can appreciate or earn revenue and XYZ. So it's interesting that you say about the school. That's going to be one of the first things that you guys sort of go with into the pools, and we'll talk about the pools in a second. But can you give us a little bit of insider info about this school and what that's going to look like and how this can be monetized?
Yeah, for sure. So the school is, I'm not going to give the exact location because
no,
that's
of course.
Yeah. But let's say the school, we're targeting to raise between 250 to 300,000 pounds for 10%. The total value of the school is 2.85. School is yielding between 10 to 12% a year, which is very much. And the profit margins in that sector is also very high. So it's a very lucrative business opportunity. Why we chose it is, first of all, we know the owners really well. we've been looking in that business. I personally have been looking at that business for a while. Like, where can I put my assets, and what are the sectors that are growing a lot? Schools are one. Medical is the second, and then we have some other things that are, maybe we can discuss about it later. But yeah, I mean, it's something real and it's something tangible and it has yield. So I think that's the main things that we're looking at the moment, especially from the equity deals that we're doing, because we want yield. We want yield, and we want to showcase that with these schools or school, you can get yield, and that's the main thing.
So I guess one of my questions, or I guess one of the popular questions is like, how does that come about? So we've talked a little bit about how the deal flow comes, but how do you decide, like, what's your kind of vetting process? I'm sure like there's a huge like sort of process of due diligence that you have to do to look at this like company or product. Is this viable? Is this tangible? How much yield does it make? What returns can be expected? How much do we need to raise? Like, how much risk is there, and so on? Like, how do you guys? I'm sure you have like a super cool, but can you summarize briefly for the sake of the audience to perhaps let them know what that looks like and instill confidence? Like, how do you instill confidence in yourself? Like, be like, yes, this is a great investment opportunity, or like, no, this is a pass for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we use different third-party real-world asset managers to help us out to evaluate different companies. We do have our own investment committee. That investment committee has 5 persons. We look at all from numbers, accounting, KYC, KYB, of course. Is there any loans? Is there any taxes? The process itself is quite heavy, but once you're basically done it, it's pretty straightforward process. Just look at the valuation. If the valuation makes sense. Second of all, does it yield anything? If it doesn't, is there anything else that can appreciate? For example, with watches, we do have watch dealers in Dubai that we're in talks with. We have gold coin dealers in Dubai and in Europe that we're basically talking to. And all of these things need to basically line up before we invest. So if they go through our investment committee, if they go through our KYC, KYB, there's nothing behind them, the company that we're investing, everything looks good, then we publish it. So there is a quite heavy process of doing this. And we hope in the beginning, it will take some time to put more and more pools up, but at least we know what we're investing in, and everything will be basically transpired because it's a SPV. So if you build a SPV, special purpose vehicle, you can go to whatever company, company page, and look all the information from there. And you will also, if you stake your NFT, you will get the equity document and so forth. But yeah, I think one of the examples that we have, like the closest funds, is Republic. If you know their page, I think it looks quite similar. I can actually show you right away how the platform would look like if you let me share my screen. That's okay.
Yeah, there you go. You should be able to now.
Okay, can you see me?
Yeah, we see.
Yeah, so this is just this is our MVP. This is not ready yet. There's going to be a little bit different version coming out in the end of the month. But you can see everything, like what is it making, what kind of deal terms there is, an overview of the company, why you should invest, and so forth. What's the strategy? All this will be public. So if you look at what Republic did with their equity deals, we kind of want to do the same thing and bring that into crypto. I think they did a fantastic thing, like building the whole ecosystem that they have. So we're basically building something similar and with similar detail. We do have also like our own commenting field. You can comment, you can ask questions. And what we eventually want is interaction with different people in the community. So once we put up something with like investment pool, people can discuss it, and then you can basically invest different amounts and get whatever deal terms are, you can get a NFT out of it.
I think that's really interesting as well, right? Is that when you open this discussion up to the community, you get a feel for what's popular, right? Or what the demand is and what the retail demand is for certain products, and you can service that better, right? So you can expand AcquireFi to cover this and make sure that you are, sometimes it's easy to perhaps be like, oh, we're just going to go after this, and like you sort of segment yourself into a little corner almost, and you perhaps overlook the wider field. Everybody's guilty of doing that at some time or another. And it just really goes to show the importance, I think, of community and having that involvement and making sure that everybody can participate and you hear what people are saying, because quite often that sort of like is self-fulfilling, right? Like what the crowd wants is kind of what will be. So you've talked a few times about, well, we've touched on what you guys are going to offer. We've touched on how you go about finding these products and how you organize your deal flow a little bit. We've touched on how you vet them and perhaps make sure that they're solid and wise investments. So the next thing, and you've mentioned it a few times already, and is the pools, right? So what does this actually look like? Is like, what's the structure of the pools? Like, if a retail user wants to come and get involved, like, what does this all look like and feel like? Or what's the grand vision for making this accessible to as many people as possible?
No, for sure. So we're launching first in Europe. We're trying to expand quite fast into Asia. So also in Brazil, we might have some opportunities there. But basically, you have to onboard to the platform, do KYC. We check that everything is okay there. You can send the funds into Acquire.Fi, and then from Acquire.Fi, you can start choosing these different pools. We will have 3 different pools first, then expand. We hope to get from the community as much like feedback as possible, so we can start sourcing these different deals. Once you invest, so these investment pools are going to be between, depending on the asset, between 1 to 5 years. So for example, with the luxury watch, we don't want to liquidate it right away after 1 year, because usually the watches go up every 2 years. And that means that the SPV will be up and running between 1 to 5 years. We do have the right to liquidate the asset if we feel like, okay, this is the top. This is now the top.
That's a good time. Yeah.
we need to sell. But of course, we will take the feedback from the community and ask like, hey, do you guys feel the same way? Once you invest in an investment pool, you will get an NFT. That NFT will represent real equity for the SPV. And basically, once you hold that, let's say NFT, you have the equity and you get this, basically the equity rights, which is the same thing. Some of these NFTs will have yields. So for example, with the schools, we will pay every quarter or every half a year, a percentage, whatever it is. I think it was 10% APY a year. So whatever that comes in a quarter or in a half year, we'll distribute it to the NFT holders. I think that's it. Like what we eventually want to do next year, or maybe even this year, is to build a marketplace for these NFTs, so we can start doing peer-to-peer trading on them. It's very important, because then you can start building liquidity, and then you actually start building like real big portfolios. And I think that's very interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess this, I'm foreshadowing a little bit here, because I know kind of the answer to this question, but perhaps the general users don't. So there is going to be a token. It's going to be called ACQ, and this token, if you hold more of this token, it will allow you to have a greater participation in some of these pools, right? Is that my understanding is correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So we will basically get you more, what do you call it? It's kind of like a launch pad token. So the more tokens you have,
Yeah,
the more exclusive deals you will get, the more allocation you will get. Eventually, whatever we will figure out later on. I think some VIP programs and so forth. That's something on the line.
yeah,
But the second thing is our staking rewards. So if the marketplace makes profit on the M&A side or on the investment pool side, 20 to 30% of that will go to buy back and burn the token. So eventually, the more
right.
tokens you have, the more rewards you get, and so forth. Just like any
Excellent.
launchpad.
Yeah, very cool. So it's going to be deflationary essentially. So you guys will use profits to buy back the token and burn it off.
That's right. Eventually, what I would say next year, we want to build a DAO. And if you think about this already, like we have 70 plus companies for sale, right? We are the only one doing this for Web3 companies. That means that we have a lot of alpha. Like we have a lot of information already that other competitors, I wouldn't say competitors, but other people have. That means that we can start cherry picking and buying out different companies with the help of the DAO. Basically, put someone from the community there to lead, build it up a little bit, and then basically resell it, like with a bigger multiplier. And I think this is something that people still are not figuring out or understand. Like we have so many deals already. Like the more deals we get, the more data we get, the more alpha we have. And we do have like venture studios, VCs, Silicon Valley people approaching us and be like, hey, like we want to buy 5 companies and so forth. We haven't been able yet. Like we're in the process of 2 deals at the moment, going quite into the end, but let's see. I'm very positive about the deals that we have.
Good, amazing. Yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit before the call. Obviously, this crypto space is the diehards are still here, but perhaps some of the very late entrants to the crypto space are perhaps running with their tail tucked between their legs and got burnt playing with fire, which is unfortunate. But in the greater good, these market cycles need to happen, right? And I think that it speaks volumes when you see people still building in these market conditions, which aren't favorable. Like we discussed this a little bit earlier on. Like it's not the entire global economic space is, like not amazing at the moment. So one of the ways that, well, the way that you guys are trying to combat this is making sure that, not all of the eggs are in one basket. It's an investment strategy that's as old as time itself, right? Don't have all of your eggs in one basket. Make sure that you diversify, make sure that you cover all of these bases. So absolute kudos to you guys. And I think it's really brilliant what you're doing. And I think that drumming up excitement and sort of bringing the stoke around what you guys are building, especially, again, like can't sort of explain enough how important it is to be going into these like real world assets. And it's exciting that you guys are allowing sort of retail users to be a part of all of this, something that they perhaps haven't seen before. I guess one of the things that we need to understand now is like when. That's what it's that age-old question, right? Is when. So what does your roadmap look like for the coming weeks and months? And we've talked about how many deals you have coming in. I guess people are going to start to be keen to understand where they can sort of get a feel for getting involved with this. Like, when's the token launch? When are we going to be able to see the platform? What does the rest of the roadmap for 2022 and on into 2023 look like for you, Jan, and for everybody else at Acquire.Fi?
No, that's a very good question. First of all, about the first question, we're launching in the end of the month. There's still room to participate. We have 4 to 5 different launch pads that we're targeting, and at least 1 to 2 exchanges. So that's going to be very exciting. In the end of the month, we will also launch the platform itself. It's beta. That means that you can't very much interact with money yet there, but you will test it out, and we will start basically gathering pledges for the different pools. The beta will last between 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how fast we are. I think we're pretty fast already. After that, it's
yeah, you guys are going at it like crazy. It's amazing to watch you guys. You're here, there, and everywhere. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's been very. I have a very good team. I can tell you that. Big kudos to the team. Okay, so after the launch, beta 2-3 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks, and after that, public launch, and after that, we will start onboarding more and more people. Hopefully, on the licensing part, we will start having in Asia a license, so we can start onboarding Asians more, and then in the Latin American countries also, we will have some possibilities there. The longer term vision is to eventually come up with borrowing and lending. Borrowing and lending for small, medium enterprises is quite bad in traditional businesses. Like there are some companies that are doing that already and that are doing it very successfully, but in crypto, there's no one doing it at the moment. And I think as a founder, you should not sell your equity. You should always have the possibility to either do a borrowing and lending contract and basically go from there. And I think there's a lot of like crypto companies already that are mature enough to get to basically get a loan. And eventually what we will do with the borrowing and lending is to offer APY for these lucrative deals. Again, we will have our own committee going through these applications and so forth. But I think that's the longer term vision, and eventually build this ecosystem. I built Paxful. I was in the early days there. I know what it takes to build a marketplace. It will take a while, but once you have the early push and you start getting these deals, it's just growing and growing and growing into a bigger and bigger.
You get that snowball effect, right? Like you just have to start getting some traction, and then as soon as you do, you just have to keep the fire on and keep it cooking, and good things happen. I've seen it countless times. So
no, for sure. And despite launching on this bear market, I think it's a fantastic opportunity because usually you have the biggest multipliers during bear market. If you invest now, and then when the bull come back, the multiplier is much, much bigger. What else can I say about the launch and the product roadmap? I think overall, like we're very open to suggestions and feedback from the community. Like Toby, for example, from you guys, I know that you are collecting watches, and maybe I see a guitar behind your back. Maybe that's something that you're interested in investing in. But all these different things, like the more you think about it, like there's so many different collectibles, right? And if you get a collectible that is very rare, like you can actually start making really, really, really good portfolios. And that's the end goal. Like,
well, first of all, the thing is, right, like you see this term like tossed around sometimes, but some of these collectibles are priceless. Like you literally can't put a price on like some of these like collectible items in the world because they're so scarce and they're so rare that it's priceless. It's just
no, absolutely.
And I guess that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to have or have access or be privileged enough to own part of like some of these rare items. And yeah, it's really exciting, and I can't wait to see how you guys sort of like build upon that. And I'm sure that there's some like super rare like Fender guitars out there that have, you know, been shredded by like Guns N' Roses back in the day and stuff like that, or like you know like Springsteen, really cool stuff like that. I think it'll be eye-opening.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps you will be surprised too, even though you know, like, even though as the CEO of this business, I think that you'll be surprised at like what you can overturn and what you can find. These markets are crazy, and the avenues that you'll be able to explore will be perhaps unknown to us right now, but will be really interesting to find out, right?
No, absolutely. I think it's kind of funny. When I was starting Paxful, I didn't know anything about the peer-to-peer business or about the payment methods and the problems that actually third world countries have with transferring wealth and transferring money. Then with Yield app, I didn't understand like how liquidity issues can affect the market and how is it very like your counterparty risk is very important to be on top of, and some other really cool behind the scenes things that you didn't think like as a retail people. And then here again I'm starting to notice that, hey, like I had no well, I had some knowledge, of course, like I have very good friends that are into gold markets and watches and so forth.
Absolutely.
But personally, me, like I've been learning so much during my 8 months, like, and I'm from crypto. I'm fully crypto background. If you think about it, like I started my journey in 2011.
Yeah, over a decade now.
Yeah, I've been all in on crypto, but then eventually last year, and when I started Yield Up, I started talking to more asset managers and not understanding like, hey, like you should diversify your assets. You should have your assets into different places. Like it can be anything from gold, it can be currencies, it can be collectibles, it can be cars. Like there's so many good ways to build them, but you just need capital. And unfortunately, as a normal people, you don't have that capital.
It's a bitter pill to swallow, unfortunately, but it also rings true, right? Like, and it's a harsh reality, I guess, but I really hope that it's impactful, that you can bring this to retail users and bring within reach things that were perhaps previously out of reach.
Yeah.
And I'm
no, absolutely,
definitely excited for that. Is there anything else that we can expect from Acquire.Fi in the future? You've touched on a lot of stuff right here that we've covered it pretty well. We've covered the mergers and acquisition side. We've covered the fractional ownership. We've talked quite a lot about how your guys' deal flows are going to look and how surprising it might be. Is there any alpha that you can share with us, or is there anything that you want to say to the community before we tie this up?
Yeah, I just want to say that the community has been really helpful. They've been fantastic with supporting us from the beginning. I think what you guys will see during the next 2-3 weeks before the launch is a lot of different KOLs, influencers starting to talk about us. I'm fully, basically, I've been on phones for the past 2-3 weeks constantly. You can imagine me as we talked on the phone last time. It's been quite hectic, but alpha, I think there's some very, very good collectibles that will come on chain, and it would be very, very bad if you miss out those collectibles. I really think that we have something specific and very extraordinary that we can build, basically build and put on chain.
Super cool. Well, it's very vague, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see this come to fruition. Yeah, and if you don't have anything else to add, I think that we'll tie it up there. This has been a great little dive into Acquire.Fi. I think that everybody's going to be really excited seeing this grow. I'm going to put all of the links and everything to your socials, to your docs, to your roadmap and everything down in this video description. And thank you so much for your time. As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. And I can't wait to see what you build.
Hey, thanks, Toby. And thanks, Yield Labs, for the support. It's always good to come to you guys and get feedback right away, and always have that open line between us. And I think people that don't know Yield Labs that well, like behind the scenes, they're very hardworking people, like very hard.
Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, I like you guys and hope for the best.
So yeah, thank you so much, Jan, for the recognition. And at Yield Labs, we are super stoked. We're happy to have been involved in this from very early on, and we're happy to have invested in this ourselves too. And we honestly are really excited and expecting amazing things from you once again.
Thanks, Toby.
Thanks, Jan.